Hello, everybody, and welcome to First Friday Lunch. If this is your first time here, my name is Tina Holland, and every first Friday of the month around lunchtime, where I'm at is in the Central Standard Time Zone. Boy, I say that 3 times fast. Every first Friday of the month, I host a little get together here on YouTube. Sometimes it's live, like today, and sometimes it's recorded if I know I'm going to be busy on the first Friday. So, anyway, we talk about what's going on with me personally, what I'm writing and working on, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, and then I have a hot topic. So let's get into it. Personal. So for those of you that don't know, my husband's a crop duster, and normally we're very busy during this time of year. And we didn't get our first job until like July 11th or something. So well after our normal season basically runs from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We did have our youngest daughter got married, and so we did travel for that at the end of June. So it kind of worked out. We didn't have any work until July anyway. But it's been sort of hit and miss, and it seems like we've got like one job a week. And I don't know if it's because we're kind of it feels super droughty. So I don't know if we're going to have a big season. So this might be our last year. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. So we're kind of like seeing how this last month of August goes and what we're going to do from there. So that's kind of what we got going on with that. My insurance company no longer approved my Borg stuff, so I am Borg free right now. So I've been having to like check my blood sugar a lot, see how we're doing. Only had like one scare. We were actually had to work the next day, and we were staying out at our caravan at the airport, and I got to like 50, and I actually have no idea what's like super low, what needs to go to the emergency room, what do I need to dial 911. Normally it's like I usually have like a cup of orange juice and some cheese, or if I feel low, like a Coke, which is what I did that night. I'll have a Coke and then kind of check it again and see how we're doing or whatever. But it's super like, what do I do? And then I was talking to, we have some neighbors at the lakes, and the neighbor at the lake was saying that she is sometimes in the 40s. And I'm like, holy crap, that's like super low, isn't it? I don't know. And you can't find a good answer, So it's kind of like, well, if you're below 50, then you probably need to like think about going to the emergency room if you can't get it back up and blah, blah. But if you can get it back up, then you're fine, I guess. So super confusing. We'll have to sort that out. Don't know if I'll be going back on the glucose monitors or not, or if we're just going to have perpetual sticks, stick testing or whatever, where you stick your finger and test the blood. So we'll see what's happening there. So that's kind of what's going on personally. What am I reading and watching? So I'm listening to I kind of have like a binge of audiobooks I just finished. So I finished, did I finish that before the last one? Thursday, Murder Club. I listened to the first book in that series. I listened to the most recent Finlay Donovan series. If you have not listened to that, it is so funny. It's weird. I like to read romances, but I like to listen to mysteries. And right now I'm listening to the Jonathan Darcy, Juliet Tilney series, which are like Jane Austen characters. And I'm listening to that, and they're solving mysteries in the Jane Austen world. So they're the children of the Northanger Abbey characters, and then obviously Pride and Prejudice. So that's kind of what I'm listening to / reading right now. Watching wise, I must be in a mystery mood. My husband and I are binging Elementary with Johnny Miller and Lucy Liu. And I always kind of liked that modern take on the Sherlock character. So I don't know. Let me know who your favorite Sherlock character interpretation is. So I've always kind of liked the Johnny Miller ones. So that's what I'm reading. And what am I writing? I am actually in the process of republishing The Pilot and the Pinup, which was my first ever first ever novella. I'm like, what do I want to say? It was my first ever novella. And so I'm kind of going through right now and like updating it because some of the stuff, it was originally published in 2005. The audiobook is out there via Audible, which is the 2005 version, but I'm kind of updating it. And there is kind of a twist at the end, which I might change because I'm not super pleased with it. So I'm, if I can't, because I don't like it how it portrays the character of Peter. So if you know, you know. So I'm like, he's a little more fun loving and charismatic in like, I don't want to say this newer version, but he was when I started with him too. And now I'm just like, I don't know. And one of the reasons I want to get that out is I want to get that and Last Virgin in Vegas and possibly the Caulfield Cowboy series all out before I go to Author Nation in November, just because the short story that I wrote for the All In on Love anthology that Author Nation has for Reader Nation, there are characters from that contemporary series that I have that are in there, and I'd like to have those books out. So if you wanted to, you could read all that before you purchase the All in Love anthology. Or I think afterwards, once the time is up on that, I'll probably publish it. My story is a very short story on Amazon and wide wherever I go. So that's kind of what I'm writing. I'm also been working on How to Humble a Highlander, which is my third book in the Regency series. And I've been doing that when we've been working and when we're at the lake because I don't have an internet connection. I've been using my tablet. And so I'm using Google Docs. And it's weird because I normally work on a Chromebook, so I'm kind of used to a small screen. And the tablet's like super shrunk down and you can't really see what you've written before. So you kind of just have to go. So it sort of reminds me of, I never had one, but an Alpha Smart. And I had a few friends that have had Alpha Smarts, and it sort of reminds me of that is because you don't have an internet connection, but you've got, this whole, you can type what you can think of or whatever, which also leads me to not going off and doing like research holes or whatever. So it's pretty raw and it's pretty rough. It took me forever to find the quotes, like how to do the quotes. So I was doing it wrong. I was doing it like half, and I had to go back and fix all those. And I fixed it on the tablet one weekend when we were down at the lake. And I use the term weekend loosely. We usually go down during the week when there's less people there. Right now, down at Detroit Lakes, which is about 30 minutes from our cabin, they are having We Fest, which is a giant country music festival. And I don't know if it's as big as it once was. It used to be like super big. And I think it's gotten smaller, or maybe less people go to live events, or I don't even know who they've got headlining. Maybe the headliners are not as, I don't know, people that people want to watch or whatever. So that's going on right now. So we were kind of like, I think we're going to stay home this weekend. Even though we don't have any work or anything, we're just going to stay home and just hang out or whatever. So we might stay at the airport because we did buy an air conditioner for our lower level. We had years ago when my husband came back from Iraq, we got Central Air. And it, like, I think about somewhere between 5 to 7 years in, it's no longer good, because I think part of it is because the duct system's old. The Freon is constantly whatever. We had it maintained and it ran decent for like another year, and then it just hasn't. So we've just kind of been like, okay, we're not going to do that, because normally we're either at the lake or we're out at the caravan at the airport, and both of those have air conditioning. So it's kind of a non-issue. And then this year it has been so hot, like everywhere in the country. I only know a few spots where I talk to people and they're like, oh, it's colder than normal. But most places it seems like it's hotter than normal. Like I think in June, we'd already had like 10, 90-degree days in June, which is unheard of. I mean, it'll happen, but it's unheard of. And if you look at like our lawn, if it's not a weed like quackgrass or some other, like the grass is just dead and it crunches when you walk on it. So it's like we haven't mowed the grass anywhere for a while because it's like, well, I don't know if we should mow it. We might start on fire or something. So yeah, so we're like, okay, so we've got like this air conditioning. So we might go out and sleep at the airport tonight just because it's going to be, that air conditioner seems to run better or whatever. So, and we've just got a small one to cool the downstairs. but we've only got like one sofa and my husband has a recliner. And so we don't have like great sleeping spaces down there. So it might be like, oh, okay, we're just going to head out to the airport, or if we go to the lake, we have a futon that we just fold out and we just sleep on that on the lower level. We have 2 bedrooms upstairs and then we have kind of a kitchen. It's probably, it's bigger than this room, but it's not very big. We have a pretty small cabin. So we have like 2 bedrooms and then we have a futon on the lower level. So we're trying to look to make space because in a couple of years, I'm supposed to host a writing retreat and I'd like to go down there, but we're just not there yet. So I'm just, if all else failed, if the cabin wasn't ready, we could retreat here on the farm. So it would be fine. So that's kind of what I'm writing. And that kind of leads me into the hot topic of like stuff that we're going to talk about, which is learning. I just wrote an article in the Writers and Garden newsletter, and it was about learning and education because that's kind of the theme for August is back to school and those sorts of things. So I thought, well, you know what? Let's talk about some of the things on where you can go as an author to learn. Like where can you go? So one of the things, I'm just gonna check and make sure I don't have any comments here because I see we got some people watching. So no comments right now. All right. You know what? I hate this because I have the microphone plugged in. And so I'm never sure if I got to use the little thing here because I only got one USB port on this Chromebook, which super sucks because on my last, wasn't a Chromebook, my last laptop, maybe it was a Chromebook. It was Delta, but it was I don't know if it wasn't bigger, but they just had more stuff. I think now because there's like Wi-Fi, you don't always hard port a bunch of stuff in, but I find sometimes hard porting like my mouse, a microphone, my earbud things, it just works better. I seem to have less issues with it than if I just try to Wi-Fi this or Bluetooth the signal in. Ugh, you can tell I'm not super technical, right? All right. I need to go here. Just give me one moment while I will share screen. We're going to share this one. Okay. All right. Hopefully, now let me see. Do a slideshow style so get it all big. All right. So, we're going to talk about where can you go to continue learning. So this is kind of, like I said, I wrote an article in the Writers and Garden newsletter, and it's kind of writer wisdom is like my little corner of that. And I talked about education and learning. And so these are some of the topics that I talked about. So, one of the things is keep in mind, there's no one path. You don't have like what I do to continuously learn or why I'm learning is not the same as what you're going to do, especially if you're a newer author. So every writer learns differently. Some people are visual, some people are audible. I think so, audible. And some people need like a combination of both. So, introverts and extroverts thrive in different environments. They probably thrive in different apartments too. So introverts and extroverts thrive in different and why do I want to say apartments? In different environments. And I think one of the reasons for that is because an introvert doesn't mean that you don't like people. Or like I'm an extrovert. So when I go to look at the way you write, like if you write in a room and you need music playing, but you don't need contact with other people and you need the internet off, that's one way. I used to thrive super well in coffee shops. And nowadays when I go to write, I do really, really well in these write-ins that they have online on YouTube or there's like other groups that get together on Zoom and write together. And I do really well in that environment to like get words on the page. So introverts and extroverts thrive in different environments. Beginners and veteran authors need different things. Like I don't need to learn how to plot a book necessarily. If I was writing a different genre, maybe, but I don't need to know like all that because I have a process that I like that I don't really want to mess with right now because it gets me to the end. And so I might need more things like marketing, learning new software, those sorts of things. So, and then your learning style changes over time. Like we just talked about that. As a new author, I needed to know how to find editors, publishers. I needed to know market, like how different markets worked. Now I need to know like sustainability. And so how you learn changes over time, and what you need to learn changes over time, right? So here's the learning opportunities we're going to talk about. Author events. So think of like book signings or conferences where you're attending as a reader, not as a writer. Writing groups, workshops, retreats, and conferences. So author events. So you might, like, let's say you see that you have your favorite author is going to be signing at Barnes and Noble. Or another indie bookstore. You might want to go there for inspiration, to meet the author and maybe ask questions. And sometimes the smaller the venue, like if you go to an independent bookstore and you live in a smaller town, like Fargo is kind of small. And if there's an indie author signing at an indie bookstore, you might get more one-on-one time. You might be able to ask more poignant questions about what is relevant to you and your career. I would say, unless you're a super fan of the author, if you write sci-fi or fantasy, you might not get as much out of a mystery author, like a cozy mystery author, than going and finding a fantasy author that's doing the same kind of talk. But if you want to just see how an author presents themselves, how they do their talk, how to do readings, it can be a learning experience that way as well. Okay, writing groups. So writing groups are good for accountability, community, feedback, and just staying motivated. I am active in like 3 writing groups right now. Writers and Garden, which helps host this. And they do more of it's kind of a business, staying motivated, keeping us on the page, that's the environment there. Then I'm also in Moorhead Friends Writing Group. We bring speakers in on a pretty regular basis. We meet on Zoom and in person at the Moorhead Library every other Tuesday. And we'll bring in speakers to kind of talk about their writing journey, which can be beneficial because some of them are indie published, some of them are traditionally published. And so we get a chance to ask questions about, their writing process, how they find their agent if they're traditionally published, how did they get into, if they're like doing movie deals, we'll talk about that, which we've had a couple of those on, and maybe foreign rights or something, whatever you're interested in, you can kind of ask those questions. They speak typically for the first hour of the meeting, and then the rest of the meeting is kind of whatever, but sometimes they go over, and we've had a couple go even over the 2-hour limit of our meeting. One spoke for 2.5 hours, but he was very much a wealth of information. So writing groups can be good for that too. I'm also in Word Weavers, which is a critique group. And I would say too, for me, what has worked best is having a mix of authors, either experience-wise, like different genres, to kind of learn what those businesses are doing in the writing world. And also very early on, it was nice to have people above me so that when I had questions about things like, how do I upload a book to Amazon, there was somebody there who could ask that question. So I think writing groups can be good for that especially if you're just first starting out. That being said, Word Weavers, in that group, we had Mary Jean Adams, who publishes historical romance, and Maddie Barone, and we all kind of came up together. And we've had other authors join since then. Most of us have a expectation of getting published, but we're critiquing kind of raw material to see, is it working? And most of us actually all of us now are romance writers. So and most all of us are published. So there's only a few people that are not, or whatever. So, and that's fine, but they're there to get something different out of the group. And apparently it's meeting their needs because they still come. So the important thing here is to find one you gel with and that is working for you, not necessarily one that's like teaching education or doing stuff like that. You want to find one that's working for you. That's why I belong to 3, because they all do different things. So, so that's one thing. So, Okay, workshops. So workshops are usually like one specific skill. Like they can be kind of a combination. Like I have a couple, there's a couple coming up in September that I do not know that I'm going to go to. So the one is Jack Pine's Writer's Block is having one. I think it's September 19th, and they meet in the Smoky Hills in Osage, Minnesota. And one of the things that they have is they have a poetry person that's their speaker this year. I went last year and it was kind of a description one. And usually if I decide to go to this one, it's not because I want to write poetry. And they actually sent out an email as like, you don't have to be a poet. You don't have to want to write poetry to come to the class and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's going to be one of those more descriptive things, or we're like using words to help describe things, I think is what it's going to be. And then they're going to have a lunch, and then they're going to have a book signing with the local authors. Now, I may or may not go to this one. If I was a poet, I'd be like, yeah, I'm all over that. This one I might go to, but it's going to be more for the networking purposes. And I'm on the fence. Like I might still go to the book signing portion of it. Like I might go see the authors and visit and stuff like that, because those are the other things when you're looking at workshops, especially writer focused workshops. It might be, look at it maybe more as a networking opportunity. I don't know. So that's like the one. The other one is there's a new festival. It's called the Loon Writers Festival that's going to be in Detroit Lakes. Both these locations are like halfway between my cabin. So DL's like over here to the southwest, and like Osage is up towards the northeast. So I'm kind of like in the middle. And so the Loon Writers Festival is got some people coming in, but they haven't listed what the classes are going to be. So, and that one's a little more. I think the Osage one's like $25 or something like that. And so the other one is 125, and it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's kind of a weekend. You could call it a conference. I'd lean it more towards workshop because it's going to be like class based. So, and there's going to be probably specific skill sets. Also, it might just be like author speaking, like this is how I got published, which I'm a little less interested in because I already know the path I want to go on. But somebody else might find that more interesting because I might want to meet local writers that live in the area, I might drop $125 just to meet writers. That might be one reason I would do it. So we'll see. So ironically, these are both in like one's in September and they're both in September, or no, maybe the Loon Writers Festival is in October. I don't know. So those are both ones that I'm like on the fence about. Like, do I want to do that? I don't know. But it's literally like one specific skill. Other places that have workshops are libraries sometimes. I took a class through the North Dakota Humanities a couple of years ago on Regency authors, and I actually used like one of the authors in this third book. so I have used the thing, but it was free for one thing. It was over Zoom and it was like weekly, but you can go and learn other stuff. So like I was going to learn about female Regency authors of the period. But there's stuff like there's a lot of libraries and humanities will host, they'll host authors for one thing, but they'll also host topics on history, on, weaving or how to write or whatever. So you can find a lot of these workshops for nothing. Like maybe it's only going to be a couple hours long or whatever. So those are places you can look to find those workshops, but kind of see if it's what you need right now. I mean, there's no sense in going to how to write poetry if you're never going to write poetry, and if it's going to cost money. So it's things you got to think about there. Okay, retreats. So retreats tend to be more about getting words on the page and creative recharge and just escaping your everyday doldrums. Is that the word I want? Ho-hums, doldrums, dum-dums. I don't know. Anyway, but they're geared more towards writing and kind of recharging, or as like Julia Cameron says, refilling the well. You're looking to get more writing done over maybe classes. There might be some do have classes. I'm going to a retreat at the end of September with the Writers and Garden Founding Group. and we'll do some writing. We're going to do a little travel, like touristy stuff, because we're going to each area hosts it. Each member hosts it once a year, because this is kind of like the board of Writers on Garden. And so in a couple of years, it'll be my turn. So, but usually what we'll do is we'll kind of have like an outing day where we kind of tour the local area that we're retreating at. We do like some crafts, we do like spa days, we do a bunch of stuff that is just to kind of refill our well. But lately, we've been doing a lot more writing. We also host one that's free and open to the public every March called the Spring Forward Retreat. It's on the spring. We always host it on the Spring Forward weekend when for the hour change. If you live in the United States, you know when that is. And what we do is that's become more of a writing. So we'll do things like prompts, like we'll say, oh, like write a story with this mug in it. We do morning pages, which are pages that kind of clear the gunk out of your head. We will, we have watched movies too. So we've watched, but they're usually, we try and keep them like writing focused or about writers. So like, I think last year we watched a YouTube video called Indie Writer. I think that's what it's called, Indie Writer, which was really, really good. And then we kind of had a little discussion about it afterwards. But we'll watch stuff like that. So, and that seems to be more of a flow. We have a cocktail party on Friday night where it's sort of a meet and greet where we get to know everybody. And that's kind of it. And then we even have like dinner together, like we'll all get our food and have dinner and talk or whatever. So we started off as a low key retreat because it was something we did during the pandemic where we wanted to get together and meet, but we couldn't. And we did have an online retreat, like the last weekend in September every year is our founders retreat. And we did that one online and we liked it so much. We kind of moved it forward because we were missing our friends. Like we were in local writing groups that, weren't getting together because of the pandemic. So we host one now, and that one tends to be a couple classes, but a lot of writing. We do a lot of writing. And so, and that's helped some people finish their books. So retreats are good for that. I would look at them more as a distraction-free spot to write. So, conferences. So conferences are really best for networking, industry information, and big picture motivation. The downside for conferences is that they can be expensive. They can be exhausting. For me, I love conferences because I love all the things just listed. I love learning things about the industry. I love networking with other authors. I don't know if I'm as much motivated by it, but a lot of people are. My friend, Catherine Noon, she went last year to Author Nation, which is probably the biggest this is probably the only conference I'm going to have on my list for a while, because the information for money to me has been invaluable. But she went last year. She had gotten the online ticket earlier in the year for I think the previous year. And then she went last year and they had was it a keynote or the opening speaker? Drew Davis is his name. He's not even an author, but he's really a good motivation speaker. And she's like, that was worth the price of the ticket. So, but like I said, they can be expensive. They can be exhausting if you're on. If you're an introvert, it's probably going to be very exhausting. I gave Amanda or Catherine Noon and her writing partner, I gave them a key to my room. So like, you guys need to go decompress. Go ahead. You can use my room or whatever. So they spent some time in there because it can be a lot of people. And so if you're an introvert, that's going to be pretty hard, or if you have anxiety. So, but a lot of these conferences now have digital tickets. Some of those are the same price. Sometimes they're cheaper. And it can be a lot of information load because you're maybe going from class to class to class to class. And unless you are able to somehow process that information or keep it or have it note marked, or they have recordings or something like that, it can be a lot to take in, and it can be pretty hard to sort out once you get back. So I would say conferences probably are geared a little bit more towards mid to veteran authors. Like newbies can go to conferences, but I think I used to go to a conference for Romantic Times book lovers conference or whatever. I used to go to that pretty regularly, and I started going as a newbie author, but it was also really good to go as a reader. Like I was the first year I wasn't published, so I didn't do any of the author events that they have. But the second year I wasn't published either. I got published that year, but I went as kind of a reader the first year, and I met people, and I met two people that I ended up becoming pretty good friends with, and that was actually kind of jump started my career into romance. It's how I met my first publisher, Liquid Silver Books. It's how I got into it. I learned more about the business because they had a combination of like fan classes and writing classes, whereas like Author Nation is just writing classes up until I think it's going to be like this year, Reader Nation on Friday. They're going to have they'll have like these panels for romance, cozy mystery, those sorts of things that might be a little bit more geared towards readers. So that conference seems to get better and better every time I go. So anyway, that's a little bit about conferences. So when you're looking at any of things, whether it's a writing group, retreat, a conference, workshop, look at kind of time, energy, travel, your stress level, mental bandwidth. Because sometimes a free event is expensive because it takes an entire Saturday. Like if I have to go see my favorite author down in the Twin Cities, it's like 4 hours there, 4 hours back, plus the time there, plus finding places to park, blah, blah, blah. So consider that. Then the obvious sometimes the expensive conference changes your career. And then value isn't always tied to price. So even if you're paying $25 for a workshop and maybe you don't get anything out of it, but you got to network and meet other newbie authors who are thinking of starting a writing group and that you are interested in joining because you all write the same genre, that would maybe be worth doing. So it's kind of these things that you got to think about, like how much time is it going to take? What's it going to cost? What's my energy level? If you are like me, right now, I don't go to a lot of events between Memorial Day and Labor Day because normally we're working. I would not go to a lot of events if it fell during the holidays. Not necessarily because we're super active during the holidays, but travel in the snow is a legitimate concern up here. The stress of like, am I going to get there? I have traveled. I went to the Founders Retreat 2 years ago, and it was going to be in Salt Lake City like it is this year because one of our founders lives there. And so it was going to be there. And I'm going to say their name. I took an airline, Frontier, and they straight up stranded me in Denver. Straight up stranded me. Like I got on in Fargo and I got a thing on my phone that said, oh, this flight's canceled. And I remember I was like, I'm getting off because I'm not going to be stuck in Denver for this whole thing. And I went, I was getting ready to like literally deboard the plane. And one of the stewardesses is like, oh no, you'll be fine because you're going to Denver and you can get another flight, no problem. And I'm like, that's true. We get there. Before we deboard the plane, the stewardess is telling us that all flights are canceled until Saturday. Our conference, I got a Thursday flight, our retreat goes from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're coming back Monday. And they were going to leave from Salt Lake City to go someplace else. Oh, I was going to Vegas because I was driving with the girls from Vegas to the Salt Lake City location. And then we still had to go up, and I'm like, well, I can't hold these guys up. So I'm calling, I'm talking. Well, it turns out the member who lives in Salt Lake, I remember like, well, I'll just go to Salt Lake instead. And that's what I ended up doing. But I had to figure all that out on my own. I didn't have a travel agent. I didn't, whatever. It was highly, highly stressful. And now, I mean, I knew enough because I had traveled a lot with my corporate job when I had a corporate job, that I knew kind of how like airlines work and all this stuff. And my biggest thing was like, where's my bag going? Is that going to Vegas? Is it here? And they're like, oh no, we took your bags off. They're down in wherever. So to go down and go back through TSA, and freaking mess, man, freaking mess. Ugh. Anyway, so needless to say, I'll never fly that airline again. And now I'm kind of like, I have like a checklist that I got to do. But that was a lot of unnecessary stress. It ended up being a great retreat. I ended up working out okay for me. But if I didn't know anybody and that was like, it was not an experience I had already repeated before. So I knew like, okay, all these people got my back and we'll sort it all out and we'll make it happen. But yeah, no. So it's one of those things now where I look at stuff like even like these two workshops that I'm debating, the one with Jack Pine Writer Block and Loon Writers Festival, is like, well, I don't really want to do poetry, so I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but I might just to go and meet people and, and then the Loon Writers Festival, yeah, they're kind of looking for attendees, but I'm like, I'd like to see what the classes are because I might go. If there's like network, it sounds like there's networking on Friday night. So maybe, I don't know, but that's the thing I'm weighing, right? I'm like, do I want to? Because I'm already doing like 2 other things this month. And is that whatever? And, so it's a thing it's a thing you got to figure out if that's what you want to do. But I think that's my last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing and we will check and see if you guys have any questions. Okay, I'm going to do that. There we go. All right. Any questions? No questions. Okay, which is fine. Totally fine. All right. Well, so that's kind of my thoughts on basically learning, like where are your opportunities to learn and how can you do that or whatever. So the last thing I'm going to, before I let you guys go is, so the next First Friday lunch will be September 4th at 11:30 Central Standard Time. So go ahead and pencil me in for lunch.